Good evening.
Good evening.
Take your time. When you're done, we'll start. All right, all right. It's good to see everybody here this evening. Um, Glad we all made it in safely and as dry as possible. Um, we're going to spend some time in worship together. Caden's going to lead us in a couple songs, and then I will have some announcements, and then we'll dismiss and start our classes. All right?
I will enter his gates with thanksgiving in my heart. I will enter his courts with praise. I will say this is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice, for he has made me glad. He has made me glad. He has made me glad. I will rejoice, for he has made me glad. He has made me glad. He has made me glad. I will rejoice, for he has made me glad. Now I will enter his gates with thanksgiving in my heart. Now I will enter his courts with praise. I will say this is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice, for he has made me glad. He has made me glad. He has made me glad. I will rejoice, for he has made me glad. He has made me glad. He has made me glad. I will rejoice, for he has made me glad. I stand to praise you, but I fall on my knees. My spirit is willing, but my flesh is so weak. Light the fire in my soul, fan the flame, make me whole. Lord, you know where I've been, so light the fire in my heart again. I feel your arms around me as the power of your healing begins. Your spirit moves right through me like a mighty rushing wind. Light the fire in my soul, fan the flame, make me whole. Lord, you know where I've been, so light the fire in my heart again.
All right. A couple quick things to share with you guys. First of all, I don't know if you've noticed, but Miss Shirley Ferris is here with us tonight, and that's exciting. That's exciting. So I'll tell you what, if you ever want a lesson on how to fight through life, that's the lady to talk to right there. She's a fighter, so we're glad to see you, and glad you're doing well. So. Just to add to your prayer list, we just got word that Richard Capici fell today, and he broke his wrist. So continue to pray for he and Miss Pam and just all the things that they're facing. And let's make sure to reach out to them and continue to surround them with love and encouragement. Vince Mullering had surgery today. It was successful. They did find a growth. And they've sent that off to pathology and waiting on results for that. So just continue to pray for Vince as he recovers. As of today, the plan is for him to go home tomorrow. So let's continue to reach out to him and Cindy as well. John is over in Daytona at Holly Hill Church speaking for their summer series. So that's where he is this evening. So pray that he makes it home safely and that everything goes well over there. Any other prayer requests or anything that I may have missed?
Just keep Jerry in prayer with her new baby.
Thank you. That's right, Jerry. I'm gonna say Doyen. Thank you. I'm gonna say Katha. She had her baby yesterday, and so everything went well with that. And a picture of the baby got sent out in the email today. So if you want to see a picture, you can see it on Facebook or see it in the email. If you're not getting the emails again, let us know. That way we can get you added to the email list. This Sunday, it's exciting Sunday. We get to all meet over in the FLC for worship in a time of beginning the vision process. We're really excited about this process, and again, we encourage everybody to take part in that. One change with that is for the kids 2 years old through third grade, they're going to come straight to this building at 10 o'clock. So you don't need to take them over there in order to bring them back over here and all that kind of stuff. Carly's got all the stuff planned for that for the entire time that we'll be in the FLC. Lunch will be provided, so just come ready to share in all of that. So, all right. All right, I think that's it. Let's pray, and then we will break out into our classes. God, thanks for today. Thanks for just giving us the new day and just getting us through it, and for the blessings that came throughout the day. God, thank you for bringing us all here tonight. God, we know that you have us here for a purpose and for a reason, and so I just pray that we will be open to receive that. God, we are just so thankful for the way you answer prayers. God, we are grateful and thankful that Ms. Shirley is able to be with us tonight. God, and for the healing that we've seen in her. And God, we know that there's still things that need to happen, and so we just pray that you'll continue to allow her to recover and be with Merle as he walks beside her through all of this. God, we also ask that you will be with Pam and Richard as Richard has fallen today and broke his wrist. God, just be with that family and the struggles that they face on a daily basis. God, we just ask that you will allow Richard's wrist to heal quickly with minimal setbacks with that. God, we're grateful for the successful surgery that Vince had today. We also pray that you'll help him recover quickly and that the pathology reports that are pending will come back in a positive way, and God, that he will just be able to get back on his feet quickly and just be able to enjoy life. God, we thank you for the successful and healthy birth of Jerry and Luke's baby. We just pray that he will continue to grow and develop physically and spiritually in the way that you've created him to. God, we know there's many more that are struggling, and so we just lift those up to you. God, help us to be aware and help us to just be willing to reach out and support those in our family that are dealing with things. God, most of all, we thank you for loving us the way that you do. Thank you for sending Jesus, and it's in his name we pray. Amen. All right, kiddos and older kiddos, you are dismissed. Y'all have a good night.
All right, welcome all of you again tonight to our class. Anybody have an idea what our topic is for tonight? if you don't know what the topic is, you've really been missing out. But that's bad news about Richard. I don't know. Richard has been failing pretty dramatically lately, and it's so sad. He's putting up a tremendous fight, and it's just discouraging that they don't have anything that evidently they can do. I was thinking, with that broken wrist, now that's going to affect his exercise in the boxing class. Maybe he can do it with one arm or something. I don't know, but obviously he won't be able to use that broken wrist for a while. So we need to keep them constantly in our prayers. Also, Hoss and Mary Jane are going to hit the road again tomorrow. I know about how long it'll take them to get to where they're going for tomorrow night. They're going to be going to stop over in Winfield, Alabama, which is where we normally go when we go. So have a fun 10 or 11 hours tomorrow. And we hope you do have a safe trip. And we'll look forward to your return and being with us when you. Let me give you a little heads up for next week. Regardless how far we get tonight in this chapter, this week, between now and next Wednesday, look up information on Gideon, Barak, and Samson. We'll be talking about those three characters in the as we continue in our study of the Hebrews. So we're in chapter 11. We're going to talk about beginning with verse 23 tonight. By faith, Moses, when he was born, was hidden for 3 months by his parents because they saw that the child was beautiful, and they were not afraid of the king's edict. By faith, when Moses, when he was grown up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to be mistreated with the people of God than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. He considered the reproach of Christ greater wealth than the treasures of Egypt, for he was looking to the reward. By faith he left Egypt, not being afraid of the anger of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible. By faith he kept the Passover and sprinkled the blood, so that the destroyer of the firstborn might not touch them. Have you ever thought about, as I was thinking about Moses and his life and the way this the Hebrew writer presents that here, that Moses' parents hid him for 3 months. Can you imagine the anxiety they had during that 3-month period? Because the edict was that all the male children be killed. And I really hadn't thought about his parents and their action. It says by faith Moses, when he was born, was hidden for 3 months by his parents. Well, I don't suspect Moses had a whole lot to do with that in the beginning, do you think? But his parents, the faith that they had and demonstrated, and it said that they were not afraid of the king's edict. Why do you suppose that might have been? If you had a child born and the authorities said that that child should be killed if it was a male child, would you have a little fear maybe that could happen? Rick?
They'd face the power of God.
All right. Now, I don't know when or how much information they had. You know, it says by faith, so we know how faith comes according to Romans 10:17. So there evidently was some indication, or they had some information, but still there was that threat on the life of the child. And the Hebrew writer says they weren't afraid of the edict. Art, did you want to add something?
When I read that, I was thinking, I am sure that it'd be crazy not to have some fear, but the love of the child overcame that fear, I believe.
Yeah. I think that they were willing to do everything they could to protect that child.
And they probably asked Moses not to cry for 3 months.
Because there were, the population of the Hebrews at this time was getting to be pretty, a big number. I don't know what the number was. What was it when they left Egypt, when there was 600 and something thousand of the men? Of course, this would have been 40 years before they left, because Moses was there, grew up there and was there for the first 40 years of his life. And then I wondered, again, we're reminded of the faith of Moses and just how much he knew. I don't know, but it says when he was grown up, he refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to be mistreated with the people of God. I don't know how much he knew what was facing him, but had he known all the things that were going to be happening in his life, and still he had the faith to choose to be with God's people. I gather that it wasn't just because they were Hebrews or they were Jews that he wanted to be with them, but he chose to be with them because they were God's chosen people. It was, that had been promised, and God had made that clear in the covenants he'd made with the patriarchs. What do you think the Hebrew writer means there where he says he considered the reproach of Christ greater wealth than the treasures of Egypt? What is the reproach of Christ? I had that same answer. When I started thinking about that, and I thought, well, what does that mean? Help me out. What does it mean? I can tell you a little bit about what I found out about it, but anybody have another verse? I'm reading from the ESV. Is there another version some of you have that may word that a little bit differently? That's verse 26.
I have a dictionary.
Okay.
Says, address someone in such a way as to express disapproval or disappointment.
Right. So he wasn't going to be among the elites if he chose to be with the people of God. What did they have going for him at the time?
Slavery.
Yeah, they were slaves. What was the positive aspect of sticking with the people of God? They had the promise, right? They had the promises for the future. And evidently he was depending on that or confident that that would actually be realized. So why was he able to make that choice at an early age in life? A relatively early age in life. I mean, it takes some real willpower, wouldn't it, to make a decision like that, where you had the access to the wealth of the Pharaoh and his household, all the trimmings, all the education, all the current knowledge and everything that was available in that, and then choose the other. How was he able to do that? Obviously his faith was involved. But you notice what the Hebrew writer says? He was looking to the reward. And I wondered how, as I think about faith and its role in our lives, its impact in our lives, how important is it for us to remember the ultimate destiny, the ultimate goal that's available, the ultimate promises that are available to us? Doesn't that help buoy us on or help strengthen us or keep us steadfast? And earlier in this epistle, of course, the writer had encouraged the Hebrew Christians about the need to remain faithful. Yes.
Often, sometimes I hear people say that events that happen in our lives is that God is testing us. I don't think the New Testament teaches that we're going to be tested here for our faithfulness. But that if we live for the Lord, we'll go to the next room. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think he, I don't know if you'd call it testing, but I think he proves, he gives us opportunity to prove our faith. In one sense, maybe it's not putting obstacles in our way. I don't think he's trying to trip us up or, present difficulties in our life. But it's just like in our physical bodies, exercise, which is against the normal desire, it's easier to sit down and not exercise, obviously. And the same would be true to me in a spiritual sense. If we aren't tested, or if we aren't tried, if we don't have opportunity to exercise our faith, how do we grow stronger? Other than, obviously, we can ask the Lord to increase our faith, as one New Testament verse indicates. Other comments about that, Art?
No, when I read this little bit, I was thinking, if I was in Moses' place, I would say I could do a lot more good for the children of Israel as in the royal family
Yeah.
than I can out there, building bricks with them.
Yeah.
But apparently, God did not believe that his
Yeah.
influence would be better out there than, and I think it's easy to make those kind of decisions that, well, if I run for office, I can do a lot of good things for people, and
Yeah.
instead of thinking of the little things that we can do.
Yeah. Have you ever wondered why God wasn't more obvious in a visible or physical way with Moses and even the Israelites? I mean, they had the information that they had a promised land, but how long were they down there in Egypt? 430 years. That's a long time. People forget. And 430 years, even to live that long. I don't think they were living that long at that time, but have you thought about that? Why did God not, as far as the scripture indicates, I don't see that they knew a tremendous amount. They obviously knew enough to have faith, but sometimes I wonder why wasn't in that 3-month period when they were hiding the baby Moses, well, and maybe God was and we just aren't, he didn't share it in the Word, but it's, then I thought about in our walk with the Lord, are things delayed? I guess getting back kind of to Dorinda's question, have you ever had things happen in your life that you were almost at the end of your rope, and something happened in a timely way that you couldn't explain or didn't understand, or wondered why it took that long for that to evolve or that to happen? I think it may be a way for us to prove our faith as we walk and live daily for the Lord.
Merle, I think too that, we're in a lot the same way today as Moses was. Do we want instant gratification now? Or do we have the faith to hold on and
Yeah.
do what we need to do for the long run?
You all right?
Because we probably have to make those choices every day.
Yeah. Yeah, in principle, I doubt there's a whole lot of difference in the approach there. Well, by faith he left Egypt, and it says not being afraid of the anger of the king. And if you read in Exodus about the events, when he found out that the king knew and the king was looking for him, or that Pharaoh was looking for him, he cut and run. Why was that? Was it not out of fear? I don't know, but it was interesting the way Moses writes about it in the book of Hebrews, and the way the author here writes about it. But anyway, he had enough judgment or enough faith, and by faith he left Egypt. not being afraid of the anger of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible. Seeing him who is invisible. And that's what faith is, right? We don't see, if we see it, it's not by faith, if we see fully, but we have to see, as he explains it here, that seeing him who is invisible. And I assume that's either God or Christ. By faith, he kept the Passover and sprinkled the blood so that the destroyer of the firstborn might not touch them. So that, it's interesting to me that as in looking at these men of great people of faith that are detailed here, have you noticed, I think I commented about it a few times already, but in these major characters, we have a little more information here given about Moses than and Abraham, but in the case of Isaac, we basically are told that he invoked future blessings on Jacob and Esau at the end of his life. That's all the writer here tells us about in Hebrews. Jacob gives us a comment about when he was dying, what he did when he was dying. Doesn't go into any details about his life, neither in Isaac's case. Joseph, by faith, at the end of his life, tells what he did. Why do you think he did that? Why is that presented to us in that way, you think, in this Hebrews, the 11th chapter? Or why would that be important? To emphasize or highlight the actions they took at the end of their life. Remember what the situation was with these Hebrews, some of the Hebrews here, when we started this study way back when?
And they wanted to go back.
They were tempted to go back, right, to the old law. They were tempted to revert back. So, to me, this reinforces him bringing up, of course, they would have known about the information about these characters anyway. They should have known because they had that was part of their instruction. But to me, it should reinforce to them how important it is to remain faithful to the end. Because he was wanting to remind them that even with all the problems they had as they came through life, they still were faithful to the end, and they were still looking beyond or to the reward, or they were still looking for the fulfillment of the promise that had been made to them and to their forefathers. And it should have been an encouragement to them that those that had gone before that way, those great leaders that had gone before, were faithful to the end and concerned still at the end of their life. All right, by faith the people crossed the Red Sea as on dry land, but the Egyptians, when they attempted to do the same, were drowned. That was a big group of people. I should have looked up that number exactly, but I think it was over 600,000 men in the group, I believe, when they numbered them as they left Egypt. Out there, the sea on one side, the Egyptians coming at them from behind, and the wilderness, I guess, on the other side. At that time, I don't think they were had the greatest of faith, that those folks. But it says here that by faith, at least they had the faith to go ahead and cross when the waters parted and they had opportunity to cross the land. They did opt for that, but that could have been a frightening and trying experience, don't you think? Recently removed from that land of Egypt, and first thing after they got out of there, they were confronted with a major problem. But they passed the test because of their faith. And then by faith, the walls of Jericho fell down after they had been encircled for 7 days. When I think about that Battle of Jericho and how they succeeded in that, and wondered how much how those folks were convinced enough to do what they were instructed to do in order to bring those walls down without a fight, without physical fight or conflict. Why do you think that approach was taken with them? Why were they instructed in that way rather than trying to physically take the city of Jericho? Because it was a walled city, and well,
With them.
they needed to understand that it wasn't due to their power, that they were where they were in the first place, right?
Right.
And what greater show of power that God was orchestrating what was happening
Can you
than to do it
imagine
in that way.
People in Jericho, what they were thinking as they saw these people
Yeah,
march.
can't you imagine how they, since they were a fortified city and and all, and I imagine there was some sentries out on the wall that were laughing and having a big time about how they were going to be overcome with that, Art.
And every once in a while, the scientific world doesn't prove Scripture, but it reinforces it.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about the telescopes and all the things they're finding that line up with Scripture. I read some time ago that archaeologists who study ancient cities, when they look at most cities that are conquered, or all cities that are conquered, their walls are not dead. Jericho's walls
Fell
fell
out.
out when they can't figure out how that happened.
Yeah. Well, all they need to do is read the story and believe it, right? All right. I think it was to give them a great lesson. It didn't last very long, did it? Because the very next city was a problem. Then he says, by faith Rahab, the prostitute, did not perish with those who were disobedient, because she had given a friendly welcome to the spies. What else did Rahab do besides giving a friendly welcome to the spies?
She was,
She sent people off in the wrong direction.
I think she lied a little bit, didn't she? When the powers that were came to seek them out, yeah, they were here, but they headed out. How did Rahab? It says by faith. So how did Rahab develop her faith?
we don't know.
Craig?
You go back and you see how it wasn't just Rahab, but even the people in Jericho talked about this nation that had basically destroyed the Egyptian army 40 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and that had just defeated the kings of Sihon and Og,
Right.
and then had just somehow miraculously during flood stage crossed the Jordan River.
Word got around.
I think the people of Jericho knew they were in trouble. They just didn't understand how much trouble they were in. But somehow Rahab didn't see it as trouble. She saw it as an opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, she had heard what had happened, and she knew God was on their side, and she wanted to be on that side too, obviously. I don't know all the answer to her lying and still ending up the way she did, but her faith is remarkable. She was not a Jewish. She didn't have Jewish hair. She was a Gentile. She was outside the chosen group, and yet she's in the lineage of Christ because of her faith and what she did. Do you have any thoughts about her actions in handling the spies when they came in? She did lie to them, the officials. Art?
And I don't know, when you do research on some of these people, you don't know how much of it is actually true. But one researcher was saying that we've mistranslated her occupation, and that she was an innkeeper rather than
Yeah.
a prostitute.
Yeah, I know there's,
And then later on, apparently she married a prince of Israel. So you wouldn't think a prince of Israel would marry someone with that kind of a background, so.
yeah, I know there's some who, some of the commentators agree or say that. Craig?
I also think, and we remember that they were living in a fallen world just like we're living in a fallen world, and God accomplishes his purposes in ways that we just don't understand.
Yeah.
And God chose to use Rahab's storytelling to accomplish his purpose. Who am I to say God should have done it that way?
He's sovereign. He can do what he wills. And I don't bring that up for us to excuse lying or whatever. But I think Craig makes a good point that she's not the only one that has ever lied to get something accomplished or done something. Well, just look at the way well, Jacob and Abraham did. So but it has to be something associated with the heart and someone's their overall will and intent. But it's interesting that Rahab is here in the lineage of Christ. And the only thing that is mentioned in the Hebrew account or Hebrew comments about her, the writer here, she gave a friendly welcome to the spies. None of the other aspect of her life is indicated. Now, I don't know how many other people, I guess as far as I remember or know, Rahab was the only one at this time that was not of the, that's listed or praised for their faith as a Gentile. But all right. Well, then the writer says, "And what more shall I say? For time would fail me to tell of Gideon, Barak, and Samson, Japheth, of David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, enforced justice, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the power of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, were made strong out of weakness, became mighty in war, put foreign armies to flight, women received back their dead by resurrection." Mike Dix asked me the other night, I think it was last Wednesday night, he'd been reading ahead and was wanting to know when that happened, those women that received their dead by resurrection. But anyway, like I said earlier, look up some information on some of these people. Maybe the author of Hebrews thought it was sufficient, the examples that he had given of faith. But he did want to at least list these others, and there's some great stories there, some that are a little difficult to explain to me, but the one on Gideon especially, and we'll try to look at him and Barak and Samson next week as we move on through. About to get through with this matter of faith in the 11th chapter, and then we'll get on around to wrapping up our study here in Hebrews. Well, we've got about 5 minutes of our designated time. One other question I did want to ask you about. In Moses' life at his birth, in both Exodus and then in the book of Acts, there is a comment about how beautiful Moses was. Did you notice that? In Stephen's defense, you remember in Acts 7, part of what he said, he dealt shrewdly with our race and forced our fathers to expose their infants so that they would not be kept alive. At this time, Moses was born, and he was beautiful in God's sight. He was beautiful in God's sight. And he was brought up for 3 months in his father's house. And when he was exposed, Pharaoh's daughter adopted him and brought him up as her own son. And Moses was instructed in all the wisdom of the Egyptians, and he was mighty in his words and deeds. And we know that when Moses was found by Pharaoh's daughter, and of course Moses' sister happened to be available to refer the care of Moses to his mother. I don't know how long that took place, how long he was, I don't know how much time he had with his mother, his natural mother. But it must have been some time, because how would Moses have gotten faith in the household as part of Pharaoh's household? They weren't known for faith in God or the God. So I gather, or I wonder if how long Moses' parents actually had influence or had the opportunity to teach him or to instill in him faith in God or to explain to him about God. I don't know that the Bible tells us anything about how long he would have been with them. I don't know what the normal age would have been, if that was 1 year, 2 years, but I mean, it seems to me it had to be more than that for Moses to have been instructed at least by his biological parents, because I don't think he'd have got that in Pharaoh's house.
I have read where in some cultures, women nurse their babies up to 5 years old.
Several years old, huh?
5.
Yeah, up to 5.
Up to 5 years old, so.
Any other thoughts on that? Just
I don't know.
curiosity? Yeah, I don't.
That's
All right.
what happened.
Well, I think that it's pretty common that wealthy people or royalty usually don't spend a lot of time with their children. They have nursemaids and tutors for them. And it could be that the relationship between Moses and his natural mother developed, and they saw that and just kept her on as a caretaker.
Yeah, I guess there's nothing that would have prevented him from making contact with his mother, because he obviously was out there and saw some of the abuses that were going on with the Egyptian, or with the slaves out there by the Egyptians. Maybe that's how it was. I don't know. All right. Well, we'll continue next week, and thank you for being here tonight and facing the weather and being with us. Appreciate it very much. You'll have a good rest of the week.